Okay, greetings one and all, and welcome back to another podcast with Amoda Maa and myself, Kavi. Hello, Amoda.
Hello, Kavi.
So, for the first podcast of 2024, we're going to talk a bit about something that's been arising via a few questions from people recently. As some of you may know, we offer every year and have done for the past 3 or 4 years our seminal program, a 3-month exploration into what it means to, I don't even know how to explain it, Amoda. Well, I don't want to give it too much of a title. Needless to say, it's had a couple of titles, and one of them is A Revolution of Love. And this year's, I think we're calling it Walking in the World as a Warrior of Love. So you can get the idea of what we're talking about. And we're going to explore it a bit. And the reason for that is that we've had, quite a few people saying, what does it mean? What is a revolution of love? Revolution is a hot word. What is a revolution of love? What does it mean to walk in the world as a warrior of love? What are these qualities? So I thought it would be a good idea to dive in and explore these themes a little bit, particularly because I don't know, there's a sense around that the turbulence of the world is increasing, and I think we can probably say that 2024 this year is going to be quite an important year. So, this whole conversation is very relevant. So, I think that's enough to open up this conversation. Let me start. Amoda, what is a revolution of love? What does it mean to walk in the world as a warrior of love? And why is it important now?
A revolution of love. Um, it's good to explore these terms and how they're being used in the context of what we speak about and what we offer in service to individuals on the path of awakening. Revolution has nothing to do with fighting the establishment in a conventional sense. The word, I've used it for many, 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 many years because through my own awakening, I experienced the shift in consciousness, the absolute transformation of consciousness as revolutionary in the sense of it being a complete turnaround, a completely new paradigm. So it's not about being against anything, although there is a certain truth to that as well, in that it is different to the establishment in the sense that it's a different paradigm of consciousness to the established paradigm of consciousness, which is the ego consciousness. That's really what it's referring to. The inner revolution. The inner revolution of consciousness is a complete turnaround in the way that we see things, in the way we relate to things, in the way that we operate in the world. So that it's really freedom from the egoic prison, freedom from the egoic identity. And in that sense, it's revolutionary, it's radical, because it does change everything. So from, if you like, relating to the world, operating in the world as a separate me, and a separate me is either defending or attacking in order to preserve the identity or the comfort, imaginary comfort or imaginary safety of the me. And therefore, the ego identity thrives on opposition. It thrives on comparison. It thrives on one-upmanship. It also thrives on victimhood, victim identity. This is the established state of consciousness. The majority mass state of consciousness, we could call it unconsciousness. So here we're talking about a revolution an internal revolution, which is really what awakening out of me identity, out of ego identity really is. Why is it a revolution of love?
Mm.
Because that fundamental shift internally in the way that we see things, in the way that we are, in the, where we are rooted within ourselves, is a shift from separation to oneness, is a shift from fear to love. It's a frequency of love. It's a new kind of frequency field that is essentially love. Love, we can explore what that means, but essentially it means the open field of presence, the open field of intimacy with what is, the open field of non-violence, the open field of inner silence. All this gives birth to love, gives birth to the frequency of love within ourselves. So I guess that's what it's referring to in a nutshell.
Why? What about the kind of turbulence? Is it important? I think we should open it up a little bit, as you said, of kind of dive into a little bit more of what is meant really by love. But why is the turbulence of the world? I talked about it at the intro a little bit. Is now important? Is there an urgency?
Well, now is important because turbulence is a catalyst for that inner revolution. Turbulence, whether it's turbulence in our own personal lives or on a more, worldly level, is exactly the place where we can either go further into unconsciousness and give our allegiance unconsciously more and more to fear, to victimhood, to opposition, to side taking, position taking, to a kind of separation consciousness, me against you, me against them, them against me, and so on. And that simply perpetuates that unconsciousness, that paradigm. Or in the midst of that turbulence, something shifts. We turn our allegiance to something different, to something perhaps that we've had a taste of, but have never really fully given ourselves to. What we're really talking about here is the commitment to truth, not ideological truth, not even philosophical truth, but the truth of our being nature, the truth of what is here, beneath and beyond all risings and fallings of thought, all risings and fallings of emotion, all rising and falling of narratives, all rising and falling of empires. It's really being rooted in our being nature, which is not passive necessarily. It is not sticking its head in the sand in any way. It is a great strength. It's spiritual resilience and spiritual maturity. So we are talking about awakening out of the egoic paradigm, but we are, if you like, including or embracing the world that we live in, our personal world, our relationships, our different aspects of our lives, and the world, the experience of the world, which is mostly fear-based these days and very turbulent. We embracing that as an opportunity, as a very profound and potent opportunity to turn our attention, to turn our allegiance, even in the midst of that, to the beingness, the open awareness, which is the same as the open presence, that is always here, beneath, beyond, behind everything that appears as part of the phenomenal world. So it's not an awakening that takes us out into the mountaintop, the pristine clarity of mountaintop. It's finding that pristine clarity within us in the midst of whatever turbulence is going on. This is awakening. What else? What else could it be? But it's we speak of the warrior of love because it's exactly during these times of challenge, again, in our personal lives, a tragedy that happens, a loss, something very unexpected, and during these collective times of tragedy, loss, unexpected occurrences, that we are called to develop our spiritual resilience. We are called to develop our spiritual maturity. And this is work, inner work that we can do and recognize within ourselves that which is ever present, within all that changes. And in this way, we start to become let's call it frequency holders, frequency holders of love, not fear, to put it simplistically, although it is profound in its simplicity.
Excuse me, there's a definite observed, at least from this place, intensification. This isn't so much a question. This is more just an observation, really, that there is an intensification taking place, happening in the world of the politic, in the world of the environment, in the world of the collective, and that seems to be being reflected very much in a lot of the intensification of individuals, where individuals who have a little bit of a door open to the spiritual world, but maybe have only gone so far with it at a certain point, are now being called to open up the door even more. I think I do see that that's happening, and that's where the deepest invitation is, for people, because it is quite a, you talk, you maybe, and me, and in a sense can talk about the revolution, a turning, let's call it, in some way, as though it's a sort of easy thing, but it's not so easy.
This is a sort of little dance we have here. Yes, a little dance that we have here. If I may say, you, Kavi, like to emphasize the challenges of it, and therefore the digging deep within oneself
because that's because
overcome
I've experienced
that.
And
I like to emphasize, and it's a little bit of both. It's a very fine line. I like to emphasize the possibility of it being much closer than anyone can imagine, than you can imagine. And that if we emphasize the difficulty of it, then why bother at all? And I'm not saying it's easy just like that, some magical thinking or some fantasy world. I'm simply saying the invitation, and I know through my experience that even though it's a long road in terms of a lifetime of working through this and that, we're not offering that. Whatever self-development is going on, whatever anyone's journey, wherever anyone's at, the possibility is in this moment to stop and be still. To be still inside, to recognize that which is true. And to me, that is the closest, most intimate reality there is. And it may well be that I'm speaking, if you like, from this side of the fence, but I can tell you there actually is no fence. It's all in the belief system and the identity, yeah. And that's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for, is to
Okay.
invite individuals to the possibility that it's right here available. And yes, we have to revisit, and yes, we have to point, and yes, we have to invite, and yes, we have to explore and inquire into what stands in the way of this very fine veil between yeah, fear, ego, separation, limitation, and falling into openness, because that's what it is. So
Okay.
here we dance in our yeah.
I've got the answer to this conundrum, which seems to come up between us, the frisson, uh, regularly, actually, and it's funny because when you talk about it as being a hair's breadth away, more intimate than the breath itself, this is exactly what I talk about in my poetry. So I don't, in my poetry, wax lyrical about, oh, the challenge, oh, the difficulty, oh, why bother? It's very much the opposite thing, and the other thing that I'd like to say is that since I did all of my work, which was hard work, there was no destination in mind back many years ago, without any knowledge of any of this stuff at all. Things have changed very much, and there is very much more of a field these days, a collective field, not a forced field, force field or anything like that, but actually just the fact that so many people, the fact that things are breaking in some kind of way, that things are breaking open in a certain way, and there are so many more people seeking liberation from egoic suffering, that actually does, I truly believe, bring it closer in the way that you're describing. I also
I
just don't like the idea of which is suggested in some ways on social media, that there's a panacea and it's like magical thinking kind of stuff. So I like people to
absolutely
be
not. It's
aware of the facts of the matter.
absolutely not. There's no formula or promise of immediate whatever we call it, salvation,
Mm,
enlightenment. It is an exploration, and each individual takes
yes.
responsibility for that. But it can be supported and it can be invited more and more, because it's not invited in the world, in the conventional world. The
Has to be
paradigm there,
invited somewhere. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
supports the matrix field of opinion, position taking, division, identity, and so on and so on. And so that goes on and on in the world, the ultimate expression being war and violence. Whether we experience a certain kind of war and violence in our, uh, you know, closer environment, in our relationships, or within ourselves, that's where
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
war
Yeah.
ultimately is. It's the same war. So somewhere in this world, which is what we're serving, is a new conversation, or a more true conversation, to ignite the commitment to discovering what is true. Again, not ideologically, discovering what is true, what is always present, what is truer than anything that you think or feel or see or believe, what is more true. Yeah. Discovering what is the open frequency field of love, and not fear, not war, not division, within oneself. So it starts within. And these are qualities of the warrior. The warrior lives with internal integrity, with internal dignity, with internal, if you like, grace, even. Yeah. And these are qualities that we can explore and develop and support. And when we come together as a group, as a community, as a whatever it is, it's an amplified field. So that's what we're really referring to. Um, And it is
Beautiful.
important during our times, and not just during at times. It's always been important, right?
These
It's
there
important
have
if
always
we're
been
suffering.
times, yes.
Yeah, it's always these times. If we're suffering, if there's psychological suffering of some kind, and we yearn for liberation, we've got to the point in our individual evolution where seeking the resolution in the world of form, things, achievements, recognitions, identities, external, love that we might get from somebody, and so on, are no longer fulfilling, are no longer satisfying, and seen to be cyclical. Yeah, we get fulfilled, and then we get disappointed, if you like, and then another cycle begins. Once we've come to that place in our own personal evolution, then we start looking within. And so the internal revolution, the internal transformation can really begin. And I think more and more people, what's different now to perhaps maybe thousands of years ago, is that there are more people coming to that point. Perhaps because the world is more turbulent, the world is more chaotic, the world is more sort of pulling us into a kind of materialism, and so it's like escalating, and it's no longer giving us the fulfillment, the peace, that we know is more true than anything that we can temporarily grasp onto in the world of form. And so that's changed, and I think more people are ready and are available. And if I may add something to the pot, and of course you know this story. It's not a story; it was an experience. But the telling of the story of many, 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 many years ago. I think it was about 30 years ago now, actually, or 25 or something. I experienced a very powerful, powerful vision. This was long before awakening on my own journey. I had started some exploration, but it was the very early stages. I had a very powerful vision of the future. And it seemed, it really was felt and known to be some future reality, or at least a possibility of, and again, this may be metaphorical, it may be literal, that I don't know, but it was a very palpable, visceral experience of the world. Actually, it was burning. The whole world was burning. In other words, it was coming undone. Something was coming undone. And in my visionary state, in the vision, was an observer of this. And as I sat observing the whole world burning, I felt within myself a kind of choice. The choice was to go running and screaming into the drama to try and do something to save myself, to save the world, or whatever.
Put out the fire.
Or to remain as stillness. But the stillness, to remain as stillness, wasn't running away from it. I was right there. The world was burning in me. And the stillness was, it's like such a delicate navigation point. One can easily get pulled by a thought, by a fear, by a compulsion to do something, to either run away, to block it out, to bury one's heads in the sand, to avoid it, to save it, whatever, to control it, to fix it. And I just remained, and I remained, and it was such a strong sense of the inner consciousness that is being called for. And as I remained, and the remaining as stillness is a very soft, what should we call it? Position, very soft. It's not tightly holding to stillness. It's very soft. Yeah, it's right here. And in that remaining as that stillness, as the world burnt, it transformed. And the whole vista became one of light, just light. Yeah. Now, what that actually means on a literal level, I'm not prophesying anything, and I'm not psychic in that way, and I don't even know whether that is accurate. You know, the psychic, it might be. But I really got a sense of what was coming in terms of a shift in consciousness, both for myself, but also collectively. And I think that's what we're experiencing now.
Oh, my dear.
Which is why I speak a lot. I mean, the awakening took place years after that. And of course, then it all made sense. It all fell into place. But I speak a lot about the light of being, because that's what it is. And that ultimately is what matters.
You have, we've talked about this a lot. Yeah, you've shared this with me on a number of occasions, and it's always had the same profound effect on me, because I know you to be, you know, not just a teacher of awakened consciousness, but also there is a mystic quality to you, and a kind of divine quality to you, and in that sense, a kind of oracular, you know, looking into the pool of, and it's not by design, and it wasn't ever by, you know, anything that you did, but I think you have a third eye, the gift of an eye, you know, that happens, and it's just a kind of part of you. And so when you spoke that to me, and you've included it a few times in part of your teaching, but haven't made a meal of it because, you know, it seems it's not about that, but that it brought me to this delicate possibility, and it has contributed over the years very much to absorbing and imbibing the fragrance of what you talk about in the teaching, which is that delicate possibility of being right here in this. And when you say there's no tightness, there is no tightness. You know, there's no force. And the veil parts somehow. That's
right.
when you're speaking.
Yes.
The veil of illusion itself parts, and it might seem like it's burning, but that's because the light is so bright. And this is not spiritual isms, and it's not magical thinking. It's like some strange possibility, some strange, yeah, if it came to you in a vision, then it's real in that sense. But what's
Well,
so real is this invitation. Let me just finish this invitation that keeps coming up through this teaching, this work with you, and now to a certain extent through me, is this possibility of this, just this, just this. And I love that because it strips away everything to just thisness. And if we can get just in that soft, as intimate as the breath itself, as intimate as the whisper, something is in that. There's something for us all in that. It's not yours, it's not mine, it's it itself. There's something about that.
That's right. I mean, it is mystical in that sense. That's a kind of uh, divine communion with the beyond, with the beyond, which is so intimate. It's right here. What came to me as you were speaking was that many years after that vision, I mean, really many years after that vision, Eckhart Tolle wrote his book, A New Earth. Well, he wrote A Power of Now first, but when A New Earth came even after that, and I don't remember which year that was, well, he's talking about the same thing. He's talking about an inner transformation of consciousness from out, out of the egoic paradigm, and the possibility of the birth of a new earth. I mean, he doesn't go into details as to what the new earth is, but this is what we're speaking of, and that's exactly what my vision was. So it's interesting on that level in terms of a time frame, that this really was in some ways prophetic in the sense that the momentum of that possibility of this shift in consciousness started to emerge in the world, because at the time that I experienced the vision, as far as I know, there wasn't so much of a conversation about it. Yeah, not in the more mainstream.
No, certainly
Yeah.
not this close. Yeah.
So,
More
now,
esoteric then.
talking
Yeah.
about shifts in consciousness and the new earth, it has really become part of the, um, uh, I wouldn't say everyday language in the majority of people, but certainly in the field of those who are seeking or even self-development or working on themselves in some way. Um,
Well, I
so
think,
it's
yeah.
become very
Yeah.
normal language, and I think that, in that sense, that shift is happening in that way, and the world is burning now.
I think yes. I mean, I've actually seen people, even some people who are a little bit more feet on the ground, but actually talking about this whole fifth dimension thing, about all of these shifts, which we don't touch any of that stuff. But I've listened to some of those people, and even though they don't speak to awakening in the same kind of way, there is a sense of the same thing, which is the illusion of the world, the egoic matrix that's built on this collective egoism that has been running for a very long time, is beginning to reach its threshold where it's either going to devour itself, or some other, butterfly-like thing is going to kind of break through. And that's, obviously the mind then grabs a hold of that and turns it into anything, but throwing it out completely is also, maybe not so fair. But then you come back to just this.
Mm,
And that's what I like about it,
mm,
is it
mm.
doesn't give the mind the opportunity to run
That's
off into
right.
the distance so
That's
much. Yeah.
right. That's right. It's not about envisioning a new world. It's not about, oh, what can we do? And there are many things we can do if that's what calls us and moves us. Um, but that's not what we offer. And certainly this program is not about that,
Yeah.
even though we say walking in the world. We really mean that which you're pointing
That,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, this, which is
Just this.
presence and openness in all aspects of life. Yeah. And then what happens in life,
Mm.
how it unfolds, how it manifests, yeah, is really up to the individual. That's not for us to say. Yeah. But when the inner transformation takes place, then that manifestation, if you like, that unfoldment is more likely to take place within that individual's life, and each individual is a drop in the ocean. So, yeah, perhaps
Yes.
something changes collectively in that as
Yeah.
well.
I remember a vision that somebody, not a vision, but actually a truthful thing that somebody shared about Oxford Street at Christmas in London, which was heaving with hundreds and hundreds of people. But every year, and I heard this, and I'm never sure whether it was true, I never saw it myself, but there was this one Zen monk who used to go to Oxford Street and walk down Oxford Street like this. Was he in Oxford Street? We have no idea. He was walking, but the way he walked sort of drew some people towards him, repelled others. But it was as though he was just kind of the invisible one walking through the matrix. And that vision is endured with me, of this kind of peacefulness almost,
Yes, it's walking
equanimity,
in the world
grace,
as
you
peace.
know.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And surely
S-
that is of value in
I
our
think,
in our lives and in the world, to walk in the world as peace.
so I'm not going to finish quite yet because I want to read a couple of your quotes and see where they land. And a warrior stands in the light of being always. The light of being is the open awareness that is a constant throughout all risings and fallings of thought, all risings and fallings of emotion, and all risings and fallings of empires. In this open awareness, love reveals itself as the true foundation of who we are, and from this love, right action arises.
That's right. That's, I hope, exactly what we've been referring to. The
So,
question is not what should I do,
right,
but uh, how can I be? How can I be from that beingness? Right action will inevitably take place. Not right according to some ideology, not right according to some belief system, not right according to self-righteousness, but right because it is according to natural intelligence. It's not driven by the ego self. The ego self which thrives on superiority or inferiority. The ego self that survives, thrives on opposition, on comparison, on one-upmanship, on victim identity, higher than or lower than, different from, right, you're wrong, or even I'm wrong, you're right. Either way, it's a polarity. And so the ego self perpetuates itself, the identity. This that we're speaking of does not operate from that. And then right action takes place, action that is in alignment with the intelligence of the whole, the intelligence of life itself, not in conflict with the intelligence of life. The ego creates more conflict. The ego creates more division, which is exactly where we are in the world right now. Yeah, it's a mass manifestation of ego, of mass, individual,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
collective
exactly.
ego. Yeah. So here we are. The world is always a reflection of who we are, not in the deepest sense, but who we think we are. Yeah.
It's amazing how the world, the ego world, has been built from in the singular. I'm me, and then another one, and then another one, and another one, and then people tend to think that they're doing right and good, and some are obviously, but coming from that divided place, particularly of righteousness, only builds upon the ego structure, and the citadel, is wavering. It can't hold any more opinions. It can't hold any more egoic thing. And that's why this is, that statement and what you're just talking about is actually extraordinarily profound and does take me to Arjuna in the great battle in the Bhagavad Gita, when he's faced with the conundrum of going into battle and he's tormented by that, that he's going to have to potentially go and kill cousins and relations. And he calls on Krishna, who guides him through the infinite universe, how all things are one thing, all things are one thing, and takes him into the heart depth of being. And from that place, he's still able to take his place in the world and still has to do what it is that he's called to do. And this is a deep thing that, in a way, we've forgotten. We don't know it. We've lost it because we're innately not innately, but we're so divided within. We can't feel that depth of what is right in its truthful way. That's why I think this is very beautiful, because I think I've seen and I've noticed with people who've been on that program over the years that we've done it, that actually something can, I see, I feel it. I can feel that rightness within. And that's the juice. It's not what the teaching is or what it appeals to the mind, but to actually get a taste of that within. I'm going to keep going. I've got another one, unless you want to add something there. Do you want to split?
Please go ahead.
Can we train to be this warrior? Yes, she said. The training is a gradual turning of allegiance towards the presence that is deeper than any narrative or thought, a gradual erosion of the ego self that allows us to fall open into the light of being, a gradual emergence of our true inner sovereignty.
Precisely.
Is there anything you'd like to say? So there is a certain quality of trainingness to what we can do, and we have to be careful with that word.
That we have to be careful with that word. It's used as pointer to something. It's not a training in the sense of amassing any spiritual knowledge or beliefs and so on. But it's a training in the sense that, well, it is, because it's an inner muscle. Yeah, it's an inner muscle. And I know we speak, and many teachers speak, present day and not present day teachers, of the grace, yeah, that there's nothing we can do to awaken. Here I am, and I speak of that. There's nothing we can do to awaken. It's not cause and effect. It's not, if I do this or practice this, then I'm going to awaken. And we speak of the quality of grace. There's a ripeness that takes place. So on that level, no, we can't train in order to awaken. What we're doing is preparing the ground, because it's also magical thinking to believe that you do nothing and you go about your life completely unconsciously, without any insight and without any kind of inner sort of deep inquiry. And one day, just because you want it or dream of it or read about it, awakening is going to fall on your head and bestow you, enlightenment. That's grace. No, it's not going to happen like that. There's a preparation that needs to take place, and that's what the training is. The preparation is the inquiry within, to what am I committed to? What am I turning my allegiance to in this moment, in this moment, in this relationship, in this aspect of my life? Yeah. What am I giving my devotion to in each moment? And so the training is a constant, or a possibility of a container that allows that inquiry to take place. Not just one off in one conversation, but over and over again for a period of time, so that we truly come, the individuals that participating in this so-called training are coming to their own turning point within, where they are really devoted to that which is what we might call the light of being, the presence, the open awareness, here and here and here, come what may, in the phenomenal world. Because that's the only doorway to true salvation, to true freedom, to true peace, to true transformation on all levels, for ourselves and for the world. And so the training is the preparation. It's like cooking up the chickpea in the pot. We can't make the chickpea dissolve. Yeah, we don't say, all right, now you're ready to dissolve. That's it.
And the chickpea doesn't do it to itself.
And the chickpea doesn't decide when the right time comes. But we prepare the pot, we cook the pot, we give the fire to it. And then that fire finally takes its own life force within the individual. And that's when something starts to take place. So that's what we're doing. In that sense, it is a training.
Yes, it is.
It's a training ground. It's a preparation ground. It's a container, an amplified, safe container for cooking it up. Yeah. Because without looking within, because the world and the way we've been trained, everything's a training, that's called conditioning, is to look out at what we do, what we have, what we think we are, what we want to be, where we want to get to, what we want to amass, and so on and so on. So it's always in that direction. So now we have to undo that. We go in the other direction. We go within and ask deeper questions and look deeper. It's an existential inquiry, which some individuals can well do on their own. I did. I've been existential all my life. I didn't need to be part of a group to do that. But most people are not. They need that help. They need that support. They need that container that says, okay, now just for this period of time, we're going to look in the other direction.
Yes. I know. I'm, just to wax lyrical about that. It really has been over the last 3 or 4 years that we've done this, that actually one of the byproducts that I didn't realize in the first year was the relationships that actually built up through people with each other, and the ability or the capacity to look out across the universe, or the world, through Zoom, and see that other people are equally as being challenged, but also are equal in their commitment to themselves and to
Mm,
this journey
mm.
and to the deepening. And so it's sort of, and that grows.
It's
That
very
grows.
encouraging. It's
Oh,
very
really
supportive.
encouraging.
Yes. Because
Really,
what
really.
many people experience, and that's what we see, is that they feel very alone with this.
Yes.
Yeah. And so yes, this is
And it is,
valuable work.
it's difficult enough without making too much of a point of it. It's difficult enough when you're on your own because there's no context
For sure.
necessarily.
Yes. Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
this provides that context,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's beautiful because there's a community that starts to build up, and few of those people have done the training 1 year and then another year because
Yes,
there's
because
such
it's
depth
actually
in
very
it,
different each year. Although we have a structure, with specific themes, those themes have been tweaked slightly. They've evolved over the past few years, and every conversation that is offered is actually fresh. I'm
Oh
not going to go
man, yeah,
back, and there's no notes. There's no, yeah. It's taking the same theme and speaking to
yeah,
it and from it now, of what's relevant now, and that's going to be
mm,
slightly different depending on the community that we're speaking with, the individuals, and really what emerges in the freshness of now. So it's always slightly different.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is always very fresh, very alive,
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
true, and very real. Okay. Uh, have you said? Have we introduced
I,
that theme? Have
I
we
think
explained it quite well?
I have no idea whether we've explained it well. I think we've explored something. I hope it's spoken to somebody, or to many, and I think that's probably enough for now. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got it, of course. The 3 month training program is starting in March. If you feel called, get in touch or jump on. You'll find it through Amoda's website, AmodaMaa.com. Um, Fantastic. We'd love to see you there. Um, Amoda, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kavi.
Okay. We'll see you again soon. Be well, and we look forward to seeing you once again. Take care. God bless. Adios. Namaste. That's what it is.
Adios, namaste.
Excuse me for my
He's going to
stupidity
add all the
sometimes.
variations of see you later. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening. Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Goodbye in many languages, none of which I know. Take care.